Guess what? Today's CPAC is the biggest and best we've ever seen. Folks, we are making a difference.
Well, it's that time of year again, CPAC time. The leaders of the conservative movement have long met in the Washington area each year for an event called CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference.
It's an amazing conference, super amazing leadership team.
The ACU has been the single most uniting force behind the conservative movement.
It has been a gathering place for decades with presidents and lawmakers and pop cultural figures.
If you're going to CPAC at National Harbor, volume right now in Oxon Hill on the Beltway at 210.
I understand there are 13,000 people here. It goes up a little bit each year.
Matt and the ACU bring together so many conservatives from around the country in one place.
I'm reminded of the Reagan Revolution, and we're trying to light the match of that revolution again in a positive way.
Quietly, mysteriously, the Republican Party has become the party of ideas.
The organization's proven itself over time from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump.
I actually started quite a while ago at CPAC, came here, probably made my first real political speech, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president, right?
Well, the president may have won an award for being one of the longest presidents to actually speak at a CPAC event. This speech went well over 2 hours.
It's wonderful to be back with so many great patriots, old friends, and brave, young conservatives. What a future you have.
Freedom, as Reagan told us, is not passed down in the bloodstream from one generation to another. Freedom, instead, you gotta stand up, you gotta fight for it, you gotta defend it.
I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
You need to come here with like-minded people. If you ain't trying to hear nothing about no socialism and all that foolishness, you need to come here with other like-minded people that's talking about capitalism, that's talking about you being free.
Our freedom, our people, our traditions, our families. But without freedom, none of it is possible. And that comes from the big guy, not the government.
All these young people here, everywhere you look, there are groups of millennials who tell us they are dedicated to growing the conservative movement, but admit, frankly, it's not cool on many college campuses to come out and say you're a conservative.
We're not going to have a conservative movement if we lose this generation.
Today I'm proud to announce that I will be very soon signing an executive order requiring colleges and universities to support free speech if they want federal research funding.
You've gotten coverage this year that I'm not sure I can recall ever you getting, so congratulations.
Amazing energy. It's the grassroots activist Super Bowl.
It's obviously the Super Bowl for conservatives.
Being conservative, being liberty-minded, being freedom-based, and CPAC is what makes America great.
Good morning, deplorables. How about that?
It's our first CPAC. We're just here taking it all in.
It's my first CPAC, having an awesome time, and the reason I'm here is President Trump saving our country. I never would have come doing for President Trump.
You know what I like about this? Number one, I'm in love, and you're in love. We're all in love together. We've done something that nobody's ever done.
Well, President Trump loves CPAC, and CPAC loves President Trump. It's a mutual, strong relationship. It's the fact that the president knows that when he comes to CPAC, he's at home. He's with his people.
You know, I first went to CPAC during the Reagan years, where Reagan was a conservative president, but CPAC was much to the right of even where President Reagan was. And now it is right in the center. It is the Republican Party.
How's CPAC doing? Good? My man, stand up, please, will you? He's the one who said you should run. Right? Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I made a speech, and then they do some kind of a straw poll. Who made the best speech? They voted, by far the best speech was Trump. He calls me, he says, you should run for politics. I say, what do I know about politics? But you know what? We learned quickly, and our country has never done better than it's doing right now, so it's pretty good. But thank you, Matt.
You know, a couple of years ago, when a whole new team of people started leading the ACU, we thought that what happened during the 4 days of CPAC was so important that it actually had to occur every moment of every day on the calendar year. You know, we're kind of stuck in the swamp, and most people obviously live very far away from the swamp for good reasons.
People all over the world who are saying it's now our time to pursue this kind of freedom. We've got about 28 different countries now that are asking us to help them put on CPACs in their own countries.
Sounds awfully exotic to this Kansas kid. We're going to go to Australia. We're going to have the first CPAC.
They have a combination of hope and desperation. They want to help their fellow countrymen pursue freedom and attain it. And at the same time, they are so aware of the forces arrayed against them.
It was rather shocking to see that the legislature in Australia literally wanted to ban us from coming, and some of our speakers.
The Home Affairs Minister is encouraging a cavalcade of intolerance to continue at CPAC's Talkfest of Hate.
The first Australian Conservative Political Action Conference will get underway in Sydney today amid ongoing controversy.
CPAC was a debate within the Australian Parliament, the very fact that we would go there. So what that tells me is that the First Amendment that we have in our Constitution, which is a concept that we think is mostly accepted in these other free countries, actually isn't.
Nearly did more to drum up publicity for a Conservative conference on the weekend than anyone else, smearing any other Conservative who dared to turn up and discuss politics with other Conservatives.
We get to Australia. We were not arrested, but we ran into Antifa, hundreds of Antifa protesters protesting us in Sydney, Australia.
CPAC really must buck their ideas up. I'm told that only 200 protesters are expected today. You really must do better than that next year.
I went out to see it because I couldn't believe it. I thought Antifa was an American radicalized left-wing phenomenon. No, it's not. It's gone global.
What I'm really excited about what the American Conservative Union is doing is you're going to create relationships across borders between like-minded people.
You know, we are part of an international movement. Whatever our countries, we're fighting against these big globalist forces.
But everybody lining up and telling us that if we dared to vote for Brexit, plagues of black locusts would descend on our land. But it didn't matter. We voted Brexit, and then a few months later in America, despite the fact that on that very morning, the Huffington Post said that Hillary, the blessed Hillary, had a 98% chance of winning. And yet what happened? The Donald swept to victory. Who'd have believed that?
Some people have asked me, why is ACU getting involved in these international programs? We're the American Conservative Union, after all. We're not the International Conservative Union. The forces arrayed against us are growing faster than the alternative. You've got the George Soros billionaires and others who are funding these efforts. They don't like the idea of individual liberty. If we do not take this opportunity, freedom could be lost.
The whole world is watching. What does America do in 2020? It's not an American question. It's a question they're asking in all the major communities around the globe. We went to our third CPAC in Tokyo, Japan.
All these Asian leaders are coming to me saying, we have to have the U.S. leadership because collectively, we Asians cannot fight this on our own. If the U.S. stands alone in this world against socialist nations, we will lose.
Just as President Trump says, fake media is running rampant, especially here in Japan. Everything they say is a lie, and you really can't trust the news. And Japanese people don't really understand what's going on or why it's happening.
We think about the fact that our rights are slowly being eroded by runaway courts and by an increasingly radicalized and socialist Democrat Party. That is a fact, but it's not uniquely American. These rights are being eroded all over the globe.
One of the most serious challenges our countries face is the specter of socialism. It's the wrecker of nations and destroyer of societies.
They are watching America because they fear that if America ever goes socialist, in essence, America stops being America. That means that the future for their country is very dark, because what left-wing American presidents do through their foreign policy, they push the most radical parts of their agenda all over the globe.
Socialism and communism are about one thing only: power for the ruling class.
I fear the future of Japan is quite dangerous. Japan has gotten a little too used to peace. They're not prepared for what could happen if they don't wake up. There's going to be trouble.
You're going to have conversations that will improve understanding between different nations that don't even speak the same language. And Japan and America and countries like Australia and the UK, you know, these are the cornerstones of Western values and free markets.
We invited one of the Hong Kong protesters to address the audience, Andy Chan. When Andy left to go to the airport and when they went to board their plane, police arrested Andy because he was going to go to a CPAC in Tokyo.
As you all know, I was detained and arrested for riot when I departed to Japan. I'm now released without being charged and on bail. This is the second arrest I have encountered in a month.
They arrested him. That was shocking to me. I mean, first of all, why does CPAC matter that much? Why are these communists so afraid of letting someone simply give a speech?
ACU's founding charter, December 1964, is very clear of what we stand for and why. It includes opposing socialism everywhere we find it.
But I'm just one of the thousands who were arrested, and we anticipate that many more Hong Kong citizens will also be arrested in the future. The situation in Hong Kong is dire.
Protesters in Hong Kong are begging the United States and specifically President Trump to help them in their fight for democracy. Tonight, some prominent American conservatives are meeting them in the semi-autonomous territory.
This Hong Kong movement for democracy is something every American needs to pray for, needs to try to support, because the Chinese regime in Beijing is probably more vulnerable than we realize.
You're looking at a face-off on one of the main roads in Hong Kong this Sunday afternoon. At one end, protesters with umbrellas ready because of the tear gas which will be shot by police.
With the suppression that we're seeing from the Chinese communists towards these peaceful protesters, there was a genuine concern that Matt, Dan, and several other of the ACU staff would end up in jail.
We would hear people say, "I will die for freedom," and they meant it.
We're here to support you. I know.
This morning, anti-government protests in Hong Kong reaching a new level of violence.
Tens of thousands marched to the U.S. consulate pleading with President Trump to liberate Hong Kong. The American flag held high as the crowd sang America's national anthem.
Strong leadership coming from President Trump has put some of these regimes on the precipice, and I'm hoping that they fall the right way, which is freedom for their people.
Shannon, I've just never seen anything like it. What you have is literally thousands of mostly what I would call students or kids, teenagers. Some as young as 12 years old have been arrested.
Something I hear all over the globe when I travel. People in MAGA hats. People saying, please tell your president that for the first time we have an American leader who's got our back, who's on our side.
They're willing to give their lives for this struggle. It's a very emotional thing to see young people committed to democracy.
It's completely the opposite of what they hear when they turn on CNN International in their country about how much the globe is so embarrassed of Donald Trump.
The movement is now receiving support from members of the Conservative Political Action Conference here in the U.S. The conservative group joined student protesters, some as young as 12.
I had a young man come up to me. I looked very American clearly on the streets of Hong Kong, and he said, "Are you with CPAC?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm with CPAC." He goes, "Thank you for being here with me." You know, it makes you almost want to tear up. These are really important times.
Our last night in Hong Kong, this great patriot who stands for freedom, Jimmy Lai, invited us to his house.
And when we showed up at Jimmy's house, there were members of the media who were essentially communist spies from media outlets owned by the communist regime in Beijing. They were there to harass us, to make us feel unsafe.
Filming us as we were walking in, videotaping us, recording who we are, why we were there.
We had this conversation around the table. What's at stake? What are the chances that this comes out well for the people of Hong Kong? What are the chances that a Tiananmen Square type episode occurs? Will there be this violent, bloody crackdown? And as we said our goodbyes, we headed back to our hotel. We all went to sleep, and not many hours later, we were woken up to the news.
The home of Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai was attacked early Thursday morning by a firebombing.
2 masked men lit glass bottles on fire in front of Lai's residence and lobbed them at the gate. The firebombs were seen as an act of intimidation against the pro-democracy tycoon.
They were sending us a very clear message. Don't meet with Jimmy. They were sending Jimmy a very clear message. Don't meet with the CPAC guys. And I think they were also sending us a message that it was time for us to leave. We are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a really important state for a lot of reasons.
It is great to have the ACU here in Minnesota, home to the only congressional delegation that makes Nancy Pelosi look moderate.
Today's September 11th, the 18th anniversary of September 11th, 2001.
Just in the backyard of where we stand today is a congresswoman who does not like America, who stands for Islamic radicalization. You know, she's the one who said some people did something.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
So we went up there on 9/11. We held an event called Some People Did Something.
They've convoluted the whole idea of September 11th and yet another shaming for what they see as racism. And I think it's politically motivated, and I think we have to call it out and make it stop.
We invited Dr. Zuhdi Jasser to be with us today because 18 years ago, he was the man who stood on the grounds of 9/11 and said, it's not appropriate to build a mosque on these grounds. He's Muslim himself, but he understood what building a mosque on bombed territory would mean.
My family was kicked out of Syria and got political asylum here. Most Muslim majority countries don't have even close to the freedoms that we have here.
Some people did something. Well, people like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, they did something. They helped rebuild America. They helped promote American values.
The one thing I kept hearing from the people of Minnesota was, why don't more people come here and talk to us? Nobody's showing up in Minnesota, but we're going to show up. It's right for the pickings for conservatives.
In Minnesota, the biggest thing we can do is get the message to the people. That's why I'm here today speaking in Minnesota. When I came out of my addiction, I'm going, okay, what's a liberal, what's a conservative? I'm going, gee, every one of my values fall right here in the conservative aisle. I've learned so much about this deep state swamp. They didn't have our president's back. We have the highest consumer confidence in history. These attacks. Everything he's done and promised that we talked about, has already happened or is going to happen. I can't believe anyone in our country would not want to keep going down that path.
If Americans sit back and let a bunch of elites in Washington, D.C. or in their state capitals determine how they're going to live their lives, this whole American experiment is over.
You get this bubble that goes on there where they think that only the people who are inside that bubble are the best and brightest, and only those people know how to tell other people how to live their lives. I think that's the most dangerous thing about Washington, D.C., New York, the Acela Corridor.
Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. The credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and there, y'all elitists are dumb.
You can put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling.
Many who support the present administration are either racist, steeped in racist religious beliefs,
ignorant, or as my mother used to say, just plain dumb.
All those lines on the map.
Only them elitists know where Ukraine is.
Do you think that people who support President Trump and his immigration policies are racist?
Anyone who supports this is supporting racism.
The racist, sexist, homophobic.
Your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading. Your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
Xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
They really do look down their noses at least half of America. It's no wonder their ratings are in the tank.
You know what you can go do? I can't say that.
We are in Reno, Nevada for the first annual CPAC West.
Thousands gathered at Corley Ranch to express their concerns about the current political climate.
We believe so strongly in ensuring that America stays strong, stays free, and doesn't turn into a socialist country.
It's nice to see like-minded people, because sometimes I feel like we're a little isolated.
Yeah. We're outnumbered.
Yes.
That's what you would think if you were watching the mainstream, or what people call the mainstream media.
The crowd completely understands the Trump phenomenon. Why? Because he's taken on the left and he's taken on the media lead. And he is willing to keep fighting for the American people.
You were there yesterday. You just came from Minnesota, and today we're kind of planting a flag in Nevada to say that this is conservative country.
It's very different from the East Coast elites that we find so often. It's the rugged individualist. It's this John Wayne kind of attitude to how you should live your life.
We have to take our state back. And we got farming, we got ag, we got cattle, we got everything, and we got to take them back. And we just can't let the liberals, the socialists, try to run this state.
We joined with ACU to create the first ever CPAC West right here in Reno, Nevada, a swing county and a swing state. Not only is it important to Trump's re-elect, it's important that Western libertarian values of individualism retain a strong foundation in our country and in our politics.
Bernie Sanders was in Denver the other day and said the same thing as Barack Obama, appealing to his crowd, his supporters. Help me transform America.
We will not only win this election, we will transform this country.
The envy of the free world, the greatest country on God's green earth, they want to turn it on its head and change it forever. That's what's at stake.
I'm a new conservative. I came to CPAC to meet other like-minded people who are completely supportive of the Constitution and Bill of Rights.
I had one wonderful woman come up to me here at CPAC West and literally said, I'm inspired. I want to take action. I want to do more. And that's what we need. For too long, the Democrats have been the ones to organize effectively. It's our turn now. It's our turn for conservatives to take that banner, to win in 2020.
Korea CPAC kicks off in Seoul, South Korea, and it's hosted by the American Conservative Union.
Just make the statement, CPAC South Korea, and think about it for a little bit.
South Korea boasts the fourth largest economy in Asia, hence the nickname, the Korean Miracle. But South Korean President Moon Jae-in is on track to changing that. Moon, often accused of imposing Marxism on Korea, shows alarming simpatico for the communist policies of North Korea.
The threat of communism on the peninsula is growing, and this whole socialism threat that we have here in our country is really a problem in so many corners of the globe. CPAC, South Korea. I had to keep pinching myself. Are we really going to go right in the middle of all that and have a CPAC? And would anybody show up?
Korea CPAC concluded to a packed ballroom in Seoul's Grand Hyatt Hotel. Though 500 were expected for the debut event, more than 1,000 Koreans showed up, spilling into overflow space at the hotel.
To try to move towards socialism.
I'm here able to learn about the people in South Korea and the trials and tribulations that they have that are not so different in some sense from some of the things that we're seeing in the United States.
In South Korea or in free countries around the globe, political disagreements should never be criminalized.
What America has been facing for the last couple of years is what Korea is now facing for itself. It's a generational change. It is an inflection point of what kind of a life do you want to live. If you don't make your stand now, it may never come again.
People in Georgia are just as sick of the swamp as many of us in Washington who are fighting it. We've got to take our country back.
Georgia is mainly Republican, conservative, Christian, family-valued people. Democrats coming in from other states who don't live here with big money backers coming into our districts trying to edge us out.
When you think of Georgia, you think of it being a solidly red state. The fact is, our research shows that there's a real change happening in the state.
Congressman Doug Collins is doing a great job. He calls it like it is. He told us about all the shenanigans going on with the rules and the laws in Washington that the Democrats don't want to follow, and it's not right.
Georgia is now the 8th largest populous state in the country. And the fake news and liberal media keep saying we're a toss-up state.
Let me put it in Trump's terms. He's going to win bigly in Georgia this time.
The American Conservative Union, as long as I've been in Washington, has been the most important organization of the right in America. And in many ways, and this is important, in the world. On top of that, there are these regional meetings that it holds, such as this one here in Atlanta. I mean, this is incredible. And then all these international meetings, Tokyo, Seoul, Brazil, across the globe, they're everywhere.
Of course, the greatest thing about going to Brazil is just the spirit of the people. I mean, they want to sing, dance, chant, hug.
Our biggest message from America is the following. Number one, what you're doing in Brazil, you're giving us hope. Hopefully what we're doing in America is giving you hope. Number two, President Trump stood up in front of the UN and at the Congress, and in every speech he says, America will never embrace socialism.
Here is a very nice opportunity. Maybe it's the first time that the Brazilians have the opportunity to have an event like this. It's important to know how to debate with the socialists or with the leftists about abortion and gun control and all the other issues that are very precious for us.
I'm a conservative because I believe in good morals and values.
I think they're so enthusiastic because the yoke of socialism has been lifted. They've experienced it. They've lived through it. They're survivors. They love what they hear coming out of America.
I want to see if you do recognize that you are. Like this.
You would hear them talk Portuguese, and then they would say, fake news, and people would just start screaming. They totally understood this concept of fake news, which we think only happens here in America. Well, it happens there in Brazil as well.
They're trying to seize control of media and seize control of population. So the conscience is awakening. People are awakening to conscience, becoming aware of this and trying to keep their rights, civil rights.
So we had about 20 to 30 years of socialism in Brazil. Obviously, it was a disaster, not only economically, but morally.
But for us, as a family, this fight against communism is very personal because for Mercy, who's Cuban-American, Her father was in Cuba when the communists came to power in the name of Fidel Castro. Mercy's father decided to fight communism, and for that he was put in prison. He escaped barely with his life into America. As a man in his 80s, he looks at America and he's worried that the communism he fled in Cuba is starting to infiltrate the country now that he calls his own, America.
Yeah, very important event here in Brazil. We have been under socialist government for 16 years or even more. And there's a uprising of conservative ideas here. It's a very important moment to be here.
As CPAC goes around the world, we learn about the individual issues in different parts of the world. Some of them are very different, but there is very much a common ground. It makes us allies in a sense that we're all fighting the same thing.
CPAC held in Memphis, covering topics such as the fake news liberal media, the Green New Death, and socialized medicine.
So many found it so interesting that the American Conservative Union decided to host a CPAC here in Memphis.
Tennessee, as we know, is one of the most conservative states in America.
You know, people here in Tennessee want to see our conservative values preserved. And when they hear the attack that's coming from the liberals in Washington, they're very concerned.
Brandon Strzok launched the viral #WalkAway campaign on social media. He says he's walking away from lies, false narratives, and race baiting of the Democratic Party.
There are a lot of different minority classes who have been sort of sectioned off into areas of the city. So you have these people saying that, you know, they don't really have a choice but to vote Democrat. That's the only choice that they have politically. They're being told constantly that the Republican Party is racist, bigoted, and that they have no seat at the table over there. Meanwhile, the Democrat Party, huge on gun regulation, which is disallowing people to protect themselves. Every policy that they're pushing is actually to the detriment of these very communities.
That's what happens in CPAC, the diversity of thought.
Well, guess what? I'm the threat. We the smart black men that don't care about your lives. We know the truth.
What Blexit is what the walkaway movement is about. You have different options, explore them, see where you land.
But just know that you have a choice. And that choice is about self-empowerment. It's not about identity. It's not about groupthink. It's not about tribalism. It's that you are an individual regardless of the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, your gender, etc. Make the best choices that are right for you and your family. And that doesn't always mean being a Democrat.
So Ian, where are we going?
We're headed to Chester, SCI, 12 miles south of downtown Philadelphia to go host the first ever prison CPAC Second Chances inside the facility.
We gotta go talk to other people who don't consider themselves conservatives, who might be hostile to conservatism. You know, what's the ultimate place to go to? That would be shocking to people. A prison.
At that point, when the team started talking about the CPAC prison, we were like, this is such an interesting opportunity to go to a place where not many people get to go.
I was very anxious and very apprehensive and nervous about going into a prison for a couple days.
I remember walking into the prison, and I took one of my daughters with me. I took my oldest daughter and my wife. And it's unnerving. We signed in, went through all those big, heavy doors and got inside the prison, and eventually was inside the room with the convicts. And I did what I normally do. I just started going up and shaking hands and talking to people.
I'm David Spavian. I'm the General Counsel for the American Conservative Union, and I'm also an ex-offender. So today, we're at the Chester State Prison, where we're holding our first ever prison CPAC.
I've been looking at options from the outside of what jobs I can do. I've never seen anything like this.
Mr. Matt Schlapp here, I seen him on TV the other day, so it was a great day.
It wasn't long ago that I was in an institution like this, and really learning and growing with the things that CPAC is doing. I wish it was something like this that was around when I first came home 18 years ago.
This inspires a lot of people to just do better and get themselves together. I just appreciate the whole program, period. I just think that it's real inspirational.
We're a lock 'em up and throw away the key type of group. There's plenty of criminals I want to lock up and throw away the key. But then you have this whole question of people who are in prison, mostly for nonviolent crimes, who are going to come out. I think over 80% of the people that we visited with at Prison CPAC are coming out. I want them to come out knowing how to read, having skills, having functional relationships.
I appreciate you guys coming out and doing this for us, you know, and it really opened my eyes, you know. Sometimes we don't get looked at as human beings a lot.
And it was an opportunity to meet not only offenders but ex-offenders who've been able to tell the story of hope, where they're saying, I might have a second chance. I might be able to do good in our society. I might be able to go back to my family and work again and have dignity in my life.
What makes America great is freedom. And that we're a nation that doesn't just talk about it. We defend our freedoms not only for ourselves, but for people in this country and all around the world.
This is the most amazing summit of conservative leadership in the world. So we are from Latin America. I'm actually from Chile. And I think that CPAC is an amazing opportunity to share with all these people in the America our conservative beliefs.
Young people like myself, I'm 18 years old, is where the movement starts. And we are the future of the conservative movement.
I remember attending CPAC when I was relatively young, and I saw Ronald Reagan here, and it had an impact on my life.
We all love freedom. That's why we're here.
America is the place where no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you have that opportunity for a better life.
We believe in the American dream, not in the socialist nightmare.
Can you tell me about your button?
Sure, button. Socialism sucks. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory if you ask me.
There is so much love for this country, and we just want to make sure that the direction America is going is in the right direction.
They're focused on the conservative issues that are not just the economic conservative issues, but the broader perspective. What does it really mean to be a conservative?
A lot of urban America doesn't know the language or know about CPAC. So us being here on that main stage, expressing those conservative ideals and showing that urban America is in fusion and in synergy with conservative ideals.
But young Americans like you are leading the revival of American liberty, sovereignty, and self-determination.
What makes America great? Liberty, limited government, not having the government tell you what you can and cannot do.
You have the courage to speak the truth, to do what is right, and to fight for what you believe.
Everything that made America great in the beginning is what makes America great today.
The best is yet to come. Because together we will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
Hey CPAC, Donald Trump Jr. I'm just here introducing Brad and the new hairdo. It's we're going Mr. Clean, I think. Do the slick version for 2020.
Nothing happens without Carr making it happen.
Well, I don't know whether you know, but Australia's got a pretty good thing going, right? We have a very relaxed lifestyle. We've got the beaches, life's good. I want all you guys talking properly and not stuff it up, right?
Chairman Matt's who?
Chairman Matt Schlapp.
Oh, Schlapp. Yes, I've heard the name. Well, he came out of the Bush White House, didn't ruin him.
You know, I'm a little worried about this Schlapp character who runs the place. But, you know, he does a decent interview.
Matt, are you listening? Matt, wake up, Matt.
Are you a native Georgian?
I am, born and raised.
I'm not from here. I'm from Washington, D.C.
My deepest condolences.
I think Antifa's a bunch of incels, you know, involuntary celibate people. They look like a bunch of punks to me.
We're in the swamp of Washington, D.C. But you know what? We're winning, and they're not. We're winning, and they're not. So just to finish, I'll tell you, Matt Schlapp is loving this.
And they're like, yeah, we don't know how long he's going, but we think he might only be halfway. And then, of course, I had to go to the restroom. Several other of these folks had to go to the restroom. And I remember thinking, how is it that President Trump doesn't have to go to the restroom? He's been talking for over 2 hours.
He's saying this is a lot more than we paid for. You know, normally you read a few pages and you say, bye, folks.
And he came off the stage, and I said, sir, do you need to, use the facilities or anything? He said, no, I'm fine. And I said, what are you gonna do when you get back to the White House? You gonna take a nap? I'd be exhausted. He goes, I don't take naps. And then he says to me as he's getting in the car, he said, hey, I like doing the speech on Saturdays because I have no appointments. I can stay as long as I want. And I said, we're with you on that. We like that as well.